The Untouchables, a Desilu production.
In 1957, Eliot Ness, a former U.S. Treasury and Prohibition agent during the 1930s, published his memoirs in a book called The Untouchables. Co-written with sports writer Oscar Fraley, it was published after Ness's death and became one of America's most celebrated, if not controversial, stories. The book is set in the Prohibition era, when alcohol production, sale, and distribution were illegal. It was a major hit, selling over 1 million copies and spawning a 1959 television series based on Ness's exploits as the leader of an elite band of Prohibition agents from 1930 to 1932. Fraley, who'd never even heard of Ness before, met him one night at the Waldorf Astoria bar in New York City. He was introduced by a friend who coaxed Ness into sharing details of his incredible stories. Fraley couldn't believe the stories Ness was telling him. Stories about busting the country's most powerful crime boss, Al Capone, and the Chicago mob in the 1930s. The tales he told Fraley dated back 30 years when Ness had a job as a federal prohibition agent. Capone had a grip on bootlegging, and his tactics were so vicious that he became Chicago's first public enemy #1. And Ness, who was young, clean-cut, and the University of Chicago educated, was only 27 years old when he headed up a team whose only purpose was to disable Capone's bootlegging network. The Capone mob first tried to bribe the agents, and when that didn't work, they tried to intimidate Ness to back off. In his newspaper articles, Charles Schwartz of the Chicago Daily News started calling the group the Untouchables to show that the agents could not be bribed. From then on, it stuck. It became the squad's unofficial title. The Hunt for Eliot Ness. The Untouchables TV show was first launched with a 2-part episode in April 1959 on CBS's Westinghouse Desilu Playhouse. Desilu Studios head and co-owner Desi Arnaz wanted to prove that he was a producer, not just a comic foil to his wife Lucille Ball, and when he saw the script for The Untouchables, he saw huge potential. Desilu had just purchased RKO Studios and needed new shows to compete in the marketplace. Desi had gone to school with Al Capone's son, but the Capone family wasn't happy with the way Hollywood was plastering their name everywhere. When Desi contacted the young Capone to propose the series, the conversation ended badly. Arnaz went ahead with the production anyway and budgeted $400,000 for production costs. He wanted to make the best damn television show on the air. He put a creative team together, including up-and-coming television producer Quinn Martin, and swung for the fences. Arnaz first hired Walter Winchell, the once feared and powerful king of gossipy tabloid journalism. Winchell had been the most popular radio personality a decade before, but television had killed his career. Arnaz felt that his narrations would offer the show's authenticity for that gritty 1930s feel. Neville Brand was hired to play Al Capone based on his performance in the 1952 film Kansas City Confidential.
This job you're talking about, I said I'd listen.
You're a cop killer.
And actress Patricia Crowley was cast to play Ness's wife. All the parts were coming together except they didn't have anybody to play the lead role of Eliot Ness. It was Friday, and The Untouchables was scheduled to begin filming the following Monday, but still no Eliot Ness. They were becoming desperate, and several names were still being knocked around, including Cliff Robertson, Jack Lord, and Robert Stack. Stack was out on a date with his wife when Arnaz tracked him down and offered him the part. Stack was a film actor and wasn't sure he wanted to jump to television. Arnaz promised him money up front and a percentage of Desilu stock if he took part. Stack gave in and said he'd take the part just to show how ridiculous he thought the whole idea was. So when Monday morning rolled around and Stack showed up at the studio, he saw how serious they were about producing the show. Stack had just gone back in time from 1959 to 1929, and the television character Eliot Ness was born. 1959 reception and controversy. The show was an instant hit on CBS, and Desilu wanted to turn it into a regular series. CBS had the right of first refusal, but unexpectedly turned it down. When ABC got the word that The Untouchables was touchable, they swooped in and picked it up. The TV series launched officially on ABC in October 1959. It was so successful that it raised ABC's network ranking from number 3 all the way up to number 1. The initial pilot episode had ended with Al Capone being convicted and imprisoned. So where did they go from here? Well, that's where the controversy comes in. One criticism was that the show was historically inaccurate. Critics noted that most of the details were authentic, but the storylines were historically altered or distorted. Over and over, the show's producers showed Ness going up against well-known Depression-era outlaws that he would never have had contact with, not to mention apprehended. The show's characterization of Ness was also controversial. The producers presented him as a publicity seeker, which was accurate, but his portrayal as a sober family man just wasn't true. Historians believe that the real Eliot Ness was a flirt and a ladies' man, and he became an alcoholic after Prohibition had ended. Anti-Italian claims and boycotts. The Untouchables was also under constant attack from various Italian-American communities for the show's portrayal of Italians. The groups thought that the show defamed the image of Italians and promoted stereotypes of them as gangsters and mobsters. Frank Sinatra, an Italian-American himself, was also a harsh and vocal critic of the show. The Capone family sued the show's producers and CBS for how they depicted their family in the pilot episode, but the case was thrown out of court. The Federation of Italian-American Democratic Organizations picketed the show in March 1961. The group was boycotting the show's sponsor, L&M Tobacco, to get them to stop backing the show. They succeeded in their efforts, as 4 days later, L&M announced that it would stop sponsoring the show. L&M claimed they were not bowing to intimidation, but the move was in response to a scheduling conflict with the network. The producers then issued a statement promising the show would highlight the positive role of Ness's partner, Rico Rossi, and that future episodes of the show wouldn't include any fictional gangsters with Italian names. And finally, that the show would emphasize the contributions of Italian Americans to American culture, including the impact of Italian American agents in fighting crime. The Untouchables' controversial nature didn't stop with the anti-Italian protests. J. Edgar Hoover, former director of the FBI, also expressed displeasure with the show. He took issue with them depicting Ness and his team as the primary force that took down gangs in the FBI's jurisdiction. Hoover was very vocal about the fictionalized scripts because they gave Ness and his team credit for the Bureau's work. Complaints of violence. The Untouchables' final and most often mentioned complaint was that it was too violent for television. The show had redefined the TV crime genre by adding action and thrills to the screen. Unlike the crime show Dragnet, which wasn't an action show, The Untouchables featured machine gun killings, stabbings, and bombings each week, which was its appeal and its repulsion at the same time. Many viewers were complaining of the excessive, unusual violence in the show, including some episodes that portrayed violence toward children. The complaints were many, and they just kept rolling in. The National Association for Better Radio and Television described the honest depictions of prostitution, violence, killings, and drug abuse as unsuitable for the TV screen. Internal memos uncovered by congressional investigators revealed a serious effort to keep upping the violence. Quinn Martin, who produced the series, complained about getting tired of seeing characters run over by cars. In one memo he writes, "I enjoy the idea of sadism, but I hope we can find another approach to it." When the show was finally canceled, anti-violence groups claimed victory. The Untouchables is often thought of as a landmark crime series. Its violence is considered mild by today's standards, but it was a trailblazer in television's adolescent days. It's remembered today as one of the most successful, memorable, and highly rated crime TV series ever made. Were you a fan of The Untouchables? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and tune in for more classic TV, movie, and pop culture reviews and retrospectives on Rerun Zone. Goodbye for now.